When did you realize your home wasn't a safe place? I was 13 when I asked my dad why me and my little sister hadn't eaten all day. Honey, you know I'm trying to help our family win, he responded. I sighed and blinked hard to hold back the tears. You see, my dad was a textbook gambling addict. It started when I was 10. He'd buy scratch cards from the local gas station and practically run outside to scratch the number off. But I guess that lost its novelty because just a few weeks later, he was spending every weekend down at the local casino. I still remember the year he started because it was the first time me and my sister, who was 6 at the time, didn't get anything for our birthday or Christmas. So I started stealing. Nothing crazy, just a cheap bracelet here and a purse there. It was almost impossible not to because every time I got her a gift, her entire face would light up. Really? For me? She'd yell before wrapping her tiny arms around me. Plus, my dad always promised that one day he would win big. He'd always joke about how 99% of gamblers quit before their big win and reference stories he'd heard about people who won thousands of dollars in one single game. But by the time I turned 14, I hated myself because I had let myself believe his lies so many times that disappointment became part of my daily routine. But even worse, I had promised Soso that our lives would get better soon, that daddy would go back to how he was before. Now, you may be wondering where our mom was during all this. Well, she sort of became the breadwinner of the family. She was working as a nurse for 14 hours a day and had no idea any of this was going on, and I wanted to tell her, but my dad had somehow convinced me that it would make things worse. But one night I had enough. I had spent the entire year acting like the parent of the house. I'd guide him to bed when he was staying up all night on GG poker, slamming his skull against the table repeatedly whenever he lost. I rarely ever ate more than one meal a day because I always let Soso eat my food instead. But I was so desensitized to my family life that none of this was even that bad. My real breaking point came during Soso's Christmas play. She had reminded me and my dad about it over and over again. Even put up a note on the fridge 2 months in advance about the date and time. My dad promised to meet me there. But on the day, as Soso came on stage to say her one and only line, she glanced at the empty chair beside me and burst into tears. I was seeing red. I texted my mom asking if we could talk when she got home later. Of course, honey, she said with a kissing emoji. I took a deep breath and reassured myself that I was doing the right thing, that things would be better. But once again, I was let down. We were sitting at the table and I told her everything. The starvation, my forced parental role, the constant tears. She reached her arm across the table and put her perfectly manicured hand on mine. Honey, no husband is as good at hiding things from his wife as he thinks. I already knew all this. I felt my eyes spark up. So are things finally going to be different? My tone was bright and hopeful. Honey, we're a family. That means we have to pick up the slack for each other. And before I could say anything else, she kissed the top of my head and went to bed. As I lay in bed that night, I did the math in my head like I'd done 100 times before. 4 more years until I turned 18. 1,460 days of this. And if me and Soso didn't share a room together, I would have made barcodes all across my thighs. The next day, my dad took me on a trip to somewhere I'd never been before, and that was to rock bottom. He came home with a bruised eye and a nose pouring with red. Honey, how much do you have in your savings account? Was the first thing he asked when I opened the door. I don't even know why I told the truth, but I did. $400? Yeah, I'm gonna need every single cent, I sighed. That was months of sacrificed food, clothes, and hours spent babysitting. It's to keep the family safe. I borrowed a lot of money, and as you can see, he then pointed to his face. They're not very happy with me right now. I grabbed the cash behind the cupboard where I hid it and handed it to him. He cried and swore on Soso's life that he'd never gamble again. I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored the voice screaming in my head. 2 days later, I woke up to Soso leaving the room. I immediately grabbed her and asked where the F she was going. Daddy told me he's taking me to McDonald's, but he told me not to tell you because he said you'd be jealous. Relief washed over me, and I told her to have a good time before going back to sleep. But the next day, Soso was gone. Her bed was made. Her favorite stuffed animal was missing. When I screamed at my dad about where she was, he couldn't look at me. They said they'd unalive us all. I had no choice. She's with a nice family. I didn't let him finish. I was already dialing 911. Full story on channel, link below.